Welcome from Levi Stadium ahead of 49ers Chargers, but that's not on anybody's mind right now. What's on people's mind? Well, the 49ers have just traded Trey Lance to the Dallas Cowboys, of all team. To the Cowboys. I mean, there's history here. When you say 49ers Cowboys trade, you think Charles Haley. That was back in 1992. And the 49ers, let's just start with this. The 49ers can hope that this turns out better for them than the Charles Haley trade to Dallas back in 1992. Because after that one happened, the Cowboys beat the 49ers twice, in 92 and 93 in that NFC Championship game. They won 2 Super Bowls, and that really represented the tipping point in the rivalry between the 49ers and the Cowboys. Now, Haley was an all-pro. Trey Lance is not an all-pro. Trey Lance is a very raw prospect who hasn't been very good in the NFL yet, has only 4 career starts. The 49ers have deemed Trey Lance expendable. We talked about this a lot here over the course of the past, 48 hours or so, ever since Trey Lance missed practice the other day for the 49ers. We discussed the fact that it was all set into motion earlier this offseason when the 49ers signed both Sam Darnold and Brandon Allen. Both of those guys, that's important because obviously Sam Darnold just beat out Trey Lance for quarterback 2. That's slotted Trey Lance out of the 49ers top 2 mix. But Brandon Allen, he has QB2 pedigree from backing up Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. So the 49ers have always been comfortable with him as quarterback 3. And they've wanted a deep quarterback room given what happened to them last year in Philadelphia, given the fact they needed all those quarterbacks to get to the NFC Championship game. But you just do the simple math. The 49ers have Brock Purdy 1, Sam Darnold 2, Brandon Allen 3. That's a deep quarterback room that they're comfortable with. That was the goal for this football team, to build a deep quarterback room that they were comfortable with. And that made Trey Lance expendable. Simple as that. So the 49ers wanted to find a way to make their team better, obviously, this year. Somehow, some way you want to make your team better this year. But we talked about the fact that it's going to be probably hard to trade for a player, right? People just drew it up and they said, why don't they send Trey Lance for a swing tackle somewhere? Well, that's easier said than done. Especially this time of the year, trades can be really fickle. I think when they saw a 4th-round pick coming back to them from the Dallas Cowboys, they said, this is a pretty damn good deal because a couple things happen here. Obviously, the Cowboys take Lance off of the 49ers' hands, but they also take Lance's fully guaranteed contract off the 49ers' hands. Lance signed a fully guaranteed contract worth $34 million because he was the number 3 overall pick in 2021. 49ers gave him a $22 million signing bonus. So the 49ers had to pay that signing bonus. They also had to pay Lance's guaranteed base salaries for 2021, 2022, and they paid him a roster bonus for being on the roster at the start of training camp of $2.8 million here in 2023. But the $940,000 base salary for the 2023 season, that now goes to the Cowboys, and so does the $5.3 million of roster bonus and base salary, which is also fully guaranteed for Lance in the 2024 season. So the 49ers save over $6 million between 2023 and 2024 by trading away Trey Lance. And those of you who have been following all my salary cap work, you know how crowded the 49ers situation both this year and next year is, especially next year. Before this deal, they had over $270 million of liabilities, and the cap probably won't be more than $250 or $260 million. We won't know until next year. But anyway, the 49ers have needed to shed fat for 2024, and this obviously trims some of that money, gives them some more spending room. Cap space is a little fungible, right? It carries over from season to season. So in a way, this might give the 49ers some flexibility to make some midseason acquisitions this year, or make some acquisitions coming up before the season this year. You never know. But they did need a little bit more space. The Lance trade is a way to give them some more space. Is it related to a Nick Bosa signing? No, they had budgeted for Nick Bosa anyway, but everything is cumulative, right? So I guess I shouldn't say it's not related, but it's not directly connected. It might be connected through a different chain of events. Regardless, the 49ers have a little bit more money. They obviously now have their QB room set with Purdy, with Darnold, and with Brandon Allen, and Trey Lance is off to the Cowboys. Now, obviously, this closes the book on a wild saga. The 49ers obviously paid a whole lot more for Trey Lance than what they sold him for in this trade to the Dallas Cowboys. That's undeniable. Using a bunch of first-round picks to trade up to number 3. No, I mean, the 49ers have acknowledged defeat on the transaction that allowed them to draft Trey Lance back in 2021. Point blank. They acknowledged defeat on that a long time ago. That is one thing, though, that's crucial in any business operation. It's called sunk cost fallacy. You cannot keep pouring resources into something just because you poured a lot of resources into it in a prior era, at a prior time. You have to realize when it's time to cut bait. And the 49ers decided that Trey Lance was not one of their two best quarterbacks this year. They might have decided he wasn't one of their three best quarterbacks this year. And they realized they had a QB1 in Brock Purdy. They realized that they like the way that Sam Darnold's career is revitalizing underneath them. And they said, you know, that 2021 expenditure, we can't live by that. You can't live by the past in business. Again, that's called sunk cost fallacy. You've got to adapt to what the situation is now. And the situation now, when you don't look at the past, because that's already happened, you've already spent those picks, the situation now is that the 49ers needed more money, and they could take whatever they could get for Trey Lance, which was that 4th round pick. So they open up over $6 million, and they get that 4th round pick in return for Trey Lance. Now, there was a lot of talk from people around the league that they wouldn't get anything for Trey Lance. So I think when the 49ers saw that 4th round pick, they said, okay, we can deal with that. We can take that. Again, the 49ers can't operate with sunk cost fallacy because the rest of the league isn't operating with sunk cost fallacy. The rest of the league didn't spend all that the 49ers did to move up to get Trey Lance in 2021. The Cowboys, all they see is a young quarterback who's struggled in his time on the field, that's had a lot of injuries, 2 injuries in 2 seasons, and is a big-time project. So the Cowboys aren't going to want to pay what the 49ers paid in 2021. The Cowboys are going to pay what they feel is a fair market rate right now, and that, for them, was the 4th round pick. The 49ers now have 11 picks in the 2024 draft. So they've replenished their draft picks. They have picks in the 1st round, the 2nd round. I believe they have 2 third-rounders, their own, and a compensatory pick for Rand Carthon. They have the 4th round pick thanks to the Trey Lance trade that replenishes a 4th round pick they lost in trading for Christian McCaffrey. They have a 5th round pick through the compensatory formula. They have a couple 6s, and they have a 7th round pick. It all adds up to 11 picks in the 2024 draft for the 49ers. This does close the book on one of the wildest draft sagas that we've ever seen, right? I mean, the 49ers literally traded all that draft capital to move up and pick a quarterback who had so little experience. We talked about moldable clay, how they wanted Trey Lance to become the future even though he had so little experience in college. They did all that, and then they punted on it just 2 years later. The most remarkable thing of this whole saga is that despite the fact that the 49ers burned so much capital for a player who didn't end up contributing for them, who they ended up selling away for a 4th round pick, despite that major loss on the plus-minus spreadsheet, the 49ers have still been to 3 NFC championship games in 4 years. They're still one of the Super Bowl favorites here in 2023. And it's because they've drafted so well in the late rounds. It's because they found Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is the primary reason why Trey Lance is out the door. Now, you could talk about the 49ers' botched analysis of the the value chart when they decided to go get Trey Lance, but I don't think that you can make any fair judgments on their development of him without talking about the fact that he got hurt twice in 2 seasons. It's really hard to develop somebody when they get hurt twice in 2 seasons. And in the second injury rehab stint that Trey Lance went through, finger injury in 2021, and then obviously the ankle injury in 2022, during the second injury rehab stint, Brock Purdy emerged. So you found the quarterback that you were looking for when you spent all that capital to get Trey Lance. You ultimately found the guy that you were looking for. But unfortunately it was fortunate for the 49ers, but once Trey Lance returned, he was expendable. Unfortunately for him, or maybe fortunately for him, because now he gets a better landing spot. Maybe the Dallas Cowboys will have a little bit more of a chance to develop him. Still, I find it absolutely poetic, wild, whatever you want to say, tragic for some 49ers fans probably, as we try to encapsulate the emotions, that Trey Lance was traded from the 49ers to the Cowboys. Again, Charles Haley, 1992, one of the most infamous trades in 49ers history, did not end well for the 49ers. Charles Haley was an all-pro pass rusher. The 49ers were the big bad 49ers on the block right back then. The 49ers were the team of the 80s moving into the 90s, looking to win their 5th Super Bowl. They had already won 4, and they traded Charles Haley, who was on some of those Super Bowl teams, to the Dallas Cowboys in 1992. And it was in the 1992 playoffs at Candlestick Park where the Cowboys beat the 49ers largely on the strength of their defense and Charles Haley terrorizing Steve Young. And then in 1993, the Cowboys beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship again. Charles Haley terrorizing Steve Young. So all the 49ers can say right now is they better hope that this trade with the Cowboys, Trey Lance to Dallas, goes better than the first one, Charles Haley to the Cowboys. Now, that Charles Haley story, that all came full circle. Charles Haley, years later, signed with the 49ers and helped them beat the Packers. I think they paid him $10,000 for the game, and they beat the Packers in the playoffs, and Charles Haley was a big part of it with the pressure of Brett Favre. We're getting way far ahead of ourselves right now, though. And, I mean, the two situations are obviously different. Haley was an all-pro. Trey Lance, still a raw and developing player. And we'll see how he does with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm sure the 49ers wish him the best. There was no logical spot for him anymore on this 49ers team ahead of depth 3, ahead of QB 3. So the 49ers decided to cut their losses here, earn back some draft capital. Remember, they traded away a lot of it, not only for Lance, but also for Christian McCaffrey. So you earn back some of that draft capital, the 4th round pick in 2024. And again, you free up $940,000 this year, and you free up $5.3 million next year. So that's about $6.3 million of cap savings for the 49ers at a time when they could really use them. So you ask, does this make the 49ers better now? Well, yes, it gives them more financial flexibility now to potentially acquire players that can help them in this run because they are really backed up against the cap. And Trey Lance, well, he would have been QB3. That was already decided a little bit earlier this week. This is going to be one that gets people really fired up, really emotional. I could already see it scrolling through here in the chat. At the end of the day, though, you cannot, if you're running a business, make your decisions based on potential mistakes that you made 2 to 3 years ago. You have to act according to what the moment dictates. It's chaos. It's a battle out there. This is the NFL. So realities change all the time. The optimal path forward changes all the time. It's constantly evolving. And the 49ers have seen this Trey Lance path evolve a lot. You could debate about why it evolved. I think we've spent the last 2 days debating about why it evolved. I think a fundamental part of the reason why it didn't go the way the 49ers or Trey Lance wanted it to go were the 2 injuries. Those were probably the main part of it. Those injuries are nobody's fault. Went from a finger injury to the ankle injury, and now and then Brock Purdy's emergence. I mean, 2 injuries and Brock Purdy's emergence, which puts the 49ers in a really good spot, right? Moving forward to the quarterback position, completely redefined how this Trey Lance experience with the 49ers was going to go. So with the knowledge the 49ers have now, they made the move they did today, which we really have expected, right? We said they would try to trade him if there was some value to trade him. And we weren't sure if they were going to be able to find that value. And perhaps surprisingly to some people, the 49ers did find the value in trading Trey Lance. They got that 4th round draft pick. So this is football. We're moving on to 49ers Chargers tonight. It's going to be Brock Purdy first, then it's going to be Sam Darnold, and then it's going to be your new 49ers QB3 in Brandon Allen. It's cool to be shocked, but don't act like this is something that we didn't see from a little bit further away. I get it. People will see Adam Schefter tweet, Trey Lance traded to the Cowboys. They think of Charles Haley. They think of the past. They think of the hated Cowboys. But every situation's different. And, you know, maybe that is the theme in this particular saga, is that the situation's different from the Charles Haley one, even though it's the same 2 teams, 30 years ago, and the situation's also different from when the 49ers drafted Trey Lance just about 2 years ago. Things have changed, the business reality has changed, and the 49ers have acted according to that changing reality. It's an emotional trade. People are upset, but sorry, the 49ers are winning a lot of football games. They can't nail every single draft pick, and the writing has been on the wall here for quite some time. We'll see what the 49ers look like tonight. We'll get some locker room reaction. I'm sure that Trey Lance is going to be on a flight to Dallas very, very soon. All right, everybody take care. We will cover this game this final preseason game, and then the 53-man roster cut down next. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like, and we'll talk to you from Levi's. That's where I'm at right now, in the hallways underneath the stadium. We'll talk to you from Levi's after this game. Take care.